Hello guys, and welcome to another discussion video, and yeah, I'm gonna talk about Nintendo Switch Sports. I have a lot of problems with it. Like, originally I was excited about it, but now I noticed a lot of issues when not looking at it at surface level. Like, just overall, like, at first it really seems like a good successor to Wii Sports, but it really falls flat and it really has a lot of issues when looking at it so far. And one of the major issues I have with it is that it basically exposes everything wrong with Nintendo during the Switch era. I mean, not everything literally, but it does expose a lot of problems. So first is probably the most obvious one. It's basically the fix-it-later approach. Basically, Nintendo adding a good chunk of content after launch and leaving the game at launch to be unfinished and everything. And I really dislike that practice because it really doesn't keep players engaged. It really just creates a lackluster content, and it just seems lazy that Nintendo's just adding more content later. And a lot of the time, this content is already complete by launch. They're just holding it back to keep the players engaged and to keep people playing the game, and a lot of the time this doesn't work at all. Like with Mario Golf Super Rush, most people just played around June and July and immediately fell off. And when the game, like when the updates came out, like people played for like a day or two and then didn't come back to it. These free update models really don't work. The only game that it really worked for was Mario Maker and Animal Crossing, because Animal Crossing was already a really popular game, and just overall, even though it had some content issues at launch, I do feel like it did have enough. I feel like it was the bare minimum before it felt lackluster, and just overall, that was a good game. But like with games like Mario Tennis and Mario Golf, and even games like ARMS, I mean, those games really desperately need more content at launch in order to be relevant, in order to be a complete and package that's actually worth it. And just overall, I feel like this game feels overpriced because of like the content that they're having at launch here, because there's only going to be 6 games. And the people who purchase this game are going to have to wait a while until they get Golf, which is in the fall, which is longer than a lot of free updates that Nintendo has been doing. And there's even an update for a gameplay feature, the leg strap, which is bundled with the product. And they're actually waiting to add support for it until later. They should have just delayed the game at that point. I don't know why they're actually not including a gameplay feature with an accessory included in the package, and it's just, you're not even able to use it at launch, which is just kind of baffling. Like, Nintendo doesn't even make decisions this weird, so, I mean, actually, I take that back, they do. But it's just weird, Nintendo really hasn't done anything like that before, like launch a product with an accessory that doesn't even have compatibility at launch. It's just really weird. And going back to the price point, Wii Sports Resort was the exact same price, $40 when it launched, and it had double the content, and it was all included there. The full package was available at launch. You could play all 12 games in all of the different modes, and this game is basically half of that. And it's just really confusing why they just decided to launch something so lackluster. I know they did Wii Sports Club, and that was also the same price, but that was really weird. That was just some weird... I mean, I would honestly say that's worse than Nintendo Switch Sports, but that's kind of like a Mario Tennis Ultra Smash and Mario Tennis Aces situation. Like, even though Aces was an improvement of Ultra Smash, that doesn't mean it's very good. I mean, like, well, at least in my opinion. Like, some games can be an improvement from the last game, but that doesn't mean they're good or a quality product. I mean, yes, I know a lot of people are going to enjoy this game, and you're definitely allowed to enjoy this game. Like, I mean, this is just my silly opinion here on this game. I mean, there's definitely enjoyable aspects of this game. I just think the overall product is lackluster because they're only providing some of the content at launch and really holding back a lot of the content until later. So, that's really my main problem that I have with this game. And another smaller issue that I have with it that kind of relates to Nintendo in this era are the sports mates. They look soulless compared to the Mii's. Like, just when looking at them, they basically look the same. They have the same faces, they're just slightly altered. Which is just really weird, because it really doesn't seem like something Nintendo would make. Nintendo is known for doing, like, interesting and creative designs like the Mii's. And just, this just seems off-brand for Nintendo. It's just really soulless in, like, I know Nintendo has been minimalistic lately, but it's just weird that they've been replacing, or at least in this game, just replacing the Mii's with something completely new and honestly worse. And I know that's subjective to say that they're worse than the Mii's, but just overall, in comparison, the Mii's are much more complex, and you're able to express so much more on a Mii than these simple sports mates that look exactly the same. Like, I mean, it's almost a similar problem to the NPCs in the Paper Mario series, but that's even more controversial, so I'm not going to go into that too much. Or I guess, like, the Mario series overall during the Wii U era, not so much anymore, but just, it does expose that problem with Nintendo sometimes being generic in some aspects, and it also kind of reveals, like, them being minimalistic in some ways during the Switch era, like with their menu, like the Switch menu kind of really being lackluster and not including much. I feel like these sports mates kind of present that idea well. Well, I mean, well as in they kind of portray it, like, pretty significantly. And it just really shows that Nintendo has been pretty minimalistic with a lot of their designs, and it's honestly pretty disappointing, because I miss what Nintendo did during the Wii era, DS era, all the way up until the Wii U era with their designs. Like the UI and a lot of the customizable features felt like they had much more to them, and I feel like these sports mates just kind of emphasize how Nintendo's definitely lacking on the amount of personality and, like, the amount of personalization you can have on the Nintendo Switch. And I know Mii's are still in the game, but it's just a really weird way. Like all the Mii's really are in this game are just basically faces. You could just, like, swap them out. And it's kind of like the Mii masks in Animal Crossing, as Demeech described, and, like, I feel like Mii's really should have been the main focus. Like, I mean, yeah, they could have updated the designs of the Mii bodies, but, like, it's just really disappointing to see Mii's kind of shoved over into a side area. Like, they're not, like, the main default thing here. They're just really using these generic, soulless characters, and it's just honestly really disappointing that Nintendo has been doing this, and it really, like I said, it is definitely emphasizing some of the problems that Nintendo has during the Switch era. And finally, I feel like this game is just kind of going off of the success of Wii Sports. Like, I mean, they definitely could have made a much more quality product. Like, they could have, they could have done a game better than Wii Sports Resort. They could have expanded Wii Sports Resort and made an amazing game for Nintendo Switch Sports. But it's just a huge missed opportunity here. It almost feels like a cash grab, honestly. Like, just with the Nintendo Switch Sports name, just to kind of bringing that recognition of Wii Sports and everything, they could have made a much better product. They could have made, like, something really interesting and they could have expanded the formula a lot and included a lot more. I know they are including a lot of interesting sports here, but they really should have done more. They really should have included like a lot more sports here. It's just really showing that Nintendo kind of markets off of the success of a lot of their properties and doesn't always think about making a quality product. I feel like one example of Nintendo doing this, like, since this video is mostly about how Nintendo Switch Sports kind of embodies a lot of Nintendo's problems, I feel like one example of this is Mario Kart. Like, I mean, I did enjoy the DLC so far, but I feel like, Nintendo lately has definitely been trying to just kind of go off of the success of 8 Deluxe without actually doing a full-blown Mario Kart game. Like, I mean, none of the stuff they produced are bad or on the level of Switch Sports, in my opinion, but just, it's really disappointing that they haven't done really anything too interesting with the series. Like, I have been enjoying the DLC, but it definitely could have been better, and I feel like that's definitely one example of Nintendo doing that, and there are definitely a few other examples of Nintendo doing this, but I guess, I mean, some of them are more subtle than others. Like, there's also been times where Nintendo just bases a whole year off of one game. I mean, 2020, the pandemic happened and everything, that's kind of understandable that Animal Crossing was the only game that year, but for 2018, they mostly revolved around Smash Ultimate and didn't really produce many other quality products other than that game. So Nintendo Switch Sports kind of exposes how Nintendo really likes to exploit their properties. And it's disappointing that they haven't been doing more, larger scale games for some of their series. I mean, I know this point isn't exactly true in all areas, because Nintendo actually has been doing better in some areas with, like, a lot of their properties. They've been really using a lot of their, underutilized series, like Advance Wars, Mario Strikers, 2D Metroid, and, like, a lot of those series haven't had, like, haven't had an actual game in years, which is great that they're actually revitalizing those series and kind of bringing them back. I guess Switch Sports is an example of that, but a really bad one, in my opinion at least. But I feel like it kind of goes both ways, but this game kind of does expose that problem with Nintendo exploiting some of their properties. But just overall, like, this was just my opinion. Like, I'm really disappointed in this game, because Wii Sports was one of my first games ever, and I really have grown attached to that game during my childhood, and I feel really nostalgic for that, but I really feel like this game really isn't doing that series justice, and it really doesn't seem like a worthy sequel to Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort. I guess Wii Sports Club really wasn't a good one either, but just overall, it's really disappointing. After so long, they're making a sequel to Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort, but it's not delivering. It's just really disappointing in my opinion. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.